The smell was the first warning, not the usual scent of wood smoke and coal, but something hungry, something wrong. I am Thomas, a baker's apprentice. London has
Welcome to our
many
cozy
smells.
bakery.
That night, I breathed a heat that tasted of hunger. It began after midnight in Farriner's bakery on Puddin' Lane. At first mere embers, then a greedy, stubborn flame. We thought we'd stamp it out. A bucket, a shout, a neighbor on a ladder. But the wind had different plans. By dawn, the city smelled of smoke. Narrow streets carried flame like hungry dogs, leaping from roof to roof. Messengers ran, parish constables argued, and the Lord Mayor hesitated.
We cannot hold
Demolition
them. We
might
must
stop it.
The Lord Mayor
But
demands
permission came too slowly. The easterly wind drove sparks across timber eaves. Flames found tinder in thatched roofs and in open rafters. Families dragged what they could. Blankets, a chest, a cherished Bible, and fled toward fields outside the walls. I saw neighbors hurl pots of water. Windows became mouths of flame, and cries rose like a swallowing tide. Samuel Pepys scribbled as I did. Voices of panic, baying crowds, the choking heat, and the city's frightened prayers. The Royal Exchange, market stalls, warehouses, any place with oil or cloth became a beacon. Markets turned to furnaces. Men seized mallets and axes to tear houses down. Sometimes the blast saved streets, sometimes embers leapt the gaps. On the second day, the heat changed everything. Lead ran from roofs, timbers collapsed, the air shimmered with flame. They said St. Paul's would shelter us. Stone was thought invincible. Instead, its lead roof melted and flowed like liquid metal. From the river, the flames mirrored themselves. Rows of burning warehouses reflecting an angry, molten city in the Thames. King Charles rode out with officers. He ordered demolitions and soldiers to help, but supplies and time were precious. At moments, the fire behaved almost like a beast, feasting, sputtering, then suddenly roaring back with a new appetite. I remember a church spire collapsing with a sound like thunder. People bowed their heads as soot snowed over them. Neighbors saved neighbors. A child pulled through a window, an old man carried a baby wrapped in a scorched blanket. Through the nights, the sky was a furnace. Sleep was scarce, and the city moved as one hurt, stumbling body. Houses vanished as if wiped away by a giant hand. Charred beams and ash were the city's new geography. Soldiers tore down lines of houses to make fire breaks. Gunpowder blasted gaps into the streets in desperate hope. People buried what they could. Letters, tokens, an old portrait, small reliquaries of memory dug into scorched ground. Rumors ran faster than news. Foreign plots, arsonists blamed, and suspicion lit as fiercely as any torch among neighbors. Truth was blunt. Narrow timber streets, close-packed houses, and a fierce wind turned small flames into an unstoppable storm. On the fourth day, the wind finally eased.
Men
Men and women stood exhausted, watching smoke thin into a brittle peace. We walked through ruins, chimneys like ribs, doors open to black hollows, markets leveled to gray ash and memory. St. Paul's was a charred skeleton. Where choirs sang, there were only shadows and the smell of scorched books. Estimates say more than 13,000 houses and nearly 87 parish churches were destroyed. Whole wards lay in ruin. Tens of thousands were homeless. Some sources say near 100,000 displaced. Estimates differ, but suffering was enormous. Out of the ash came plans, wider streets, stone houses, and new regulations whispered in the offices of surveyors. Surveyors and architects sketched new maps. Christopher Wren's name rose as churches would be rebuilt, stones stacked with care. But rebuilding meant hard choices.
This is an outrage!
Who could return? Who would be priced out?
We must rebuild immediately.
What would the new city
Not without
look
a proper
like?
plan.
I passed men who traded ashes for tools. They grinned,
And this is where we'll have the open
tired,
plan living and
already
dining
planning
area.
a new door
that's
frame,
beautiful.
a stronger lintel.
It's everything we hope for.
At night, we listened for the creak of burning beams. Each sound made hearts jump, as if the blaze might return. Small acts of kindness mattered. A bowl of stew shared, a sack of grain split between two trembling families. Officials drew up building codes to forbid timber eaves and thatch. Law began to shape the city's future with brick and tile. Writers copied lists and wrote names. Pepys's notes and many others became the scaffolding of memory and later historians' work. I wrote beside them, smudged with soot, names, the day, some details, so that those who came after might know we had been here. Charity committees formed, strangers housed strangers, churches opened halls. The city's compassion was raw and immediate. The king offered aid and surveying teams.
We offer this in the king's
Money began
name.
to be raised, though debt
Thank you,
and
my lord.
disputes would linger for years. Wren's churches rose from ruins. St. Paul's would be rebuilt over many years into a different, grander silhouette. New stone and new rules didn't erase grief, but they made the streets safer for the children who would follow. Some stone buildings survived, others were rebuilt on the same plots with careful foundations and firm hands. When I returned to Pudding Lane months later, the bakery spot was cleared, foundations set for sturdier walls. Rebuilding created work for many, profit
Fresh
for
apples
some,
here. Get your fresh apples.
and the painful reality that not
Beautiful
everyone could
silks,
afford
beautiful
to return.
fabrics.
Carvers and masons adorned new facades with pride. The city's face shifted from soot to carved stone and new lintels. Over time, the smoke receded into tales told at hearths. Children would
From
ask,
that first spark,
what was fire
all the
like?
stories of our
As
people
if it were
began.
a story. We labored day after day, setting stones, hauling sand, staking the streets, our backs bent, our minds fixed on rebuilding. At market and at prayer, we stitched life back together. Commerce resumed in patched stalls. Bell ringing returned to the skyline. The great fire forced change. Stricter codes, new surveying, and a more cautious eye upon how we build our city. I still wake sometimes, breathing smoke, seeing a
The
red
city,
sky.
reborn from
The
ashes,
memory of that night
stands as a
is
testament to our
shadow in my
unwavering
bones.
spirit.
Historians will debate numbers and causes. For those who lived it, the fire's truth was immediate and unambiguous. If you walk the city now, look for plaques, for the monument's column that remembers the blaze's start on Pudding Lane. Think of modern disasters that reshaped cities. The Great Fire is an old example of how ruin can produce radical change. For every destroyed home, a new policy was born. For every lost parish, a rebuilt church promised continuity and hope. My little notebook is brittle. These pages smell faintly of smoke, but they keep the ember-detailed record of what I saw. I end as I began. The smell was the first warning, but from ash rose stone and law, and a city remade. If this moved you, subscribe to Chronosynth, like, comment a modern disaster that changed a city, and hit the bell. Credits, visuals AI generated, voice actor as narrator, sound design, crackling fire, distant bells. See description for sources and links.